meeting for September 27th, 2018 for Statesville Valley Fire and Rescue Board.
And also for Western Lane Ambulance District.
Let's stand and say the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Directors, if we could just take a moment, we're trying to get Director Farnsworth back. We had him on the FaceTime and lost him, and we're trying to find him.
I think it looks pretty good like that.
He's calling. Sounds like he's calling. He's calling. Yeah.
Fans are dialing him.
Oh.
I'll give him 1 second to try to call me.
Okay, we need to establish a call, can we do roll call for Statesville Valley Fire and Rescue?
Okay, Director Carnahan,
Present.
Director Hickson,
Here.
Director Green, Director Phillips,
Here.
Director Woodbury.
Quorum is established.
Let's do the same for Western Lane. We can
Director Russell. Here. Director Childs.
Here.
Director Farnsworth. Director Webb.
Here.
And Director Yessen.
Here.
Next on the agenda would be the, Chief, that would be up to you. Recognition for Captain Larson.
Captain Larson, come on there.
Right in the center. Probably more center.
Really no way to do this without turning our backs on somebody here.
Well, it's your board.
Yeah.
But what we wanted to do is we wanted to recognize Jeff for a pretty significant achievement, which is the fact that he earned his associate's degree in fire science through SWAT Community College. So that's a 90-credit program. It's about a 2-year program. He's our first career person to do this, and we've got a couple of others. We're thinking they should be done within about a year, but it's a significant achievement. And Jeff, good job. I'm glad that you stuck with it. And what's next?
Bachelor's degree.
Good job.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Nice meeting you guys. Great. Thank you, Melissa. Thanks very much. Have a good side.
Congrats. Great.
We probably should do the minutes separately. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Why don't you go ahead and
I would like to do the August 15th, 2018 minutes, our regular scheduled meetings, because I was at that one. I would entertain a motion to, any corrections or additions to them?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a second to approve the August 15th regular meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? So moved. A special joint meeting on August 30th. I was not at that, so someone would have to make a motion.
I'll make a motion for that. I'll second.
Okay. Any additions or corrections to that minute? Those minutes? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? So moved.
Very good. We'll move to the ambulance district. We actually have 4 sets of meetings here. We'll do each one at a time. We have the monthly meeting of July 26, 2018. That was our regular meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the July 26th minutes as presented.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Larry seconds. Any discussion, corrections, or questions? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Or do you want to roll?
We have to do roll call.
Well, roll.
Director Russell,
Yes.
Director Childs,
Yes.
Director Farnsworth,
Yes.
Director Webb,
Yes.
and Director Yasi.
Yes. Okay, and then we had a special meeting, minutes attached August 8th, 2018. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
I have corrections for them.
August,
For
for the
August
August 8th, okay?
Yes, Director Childs was not here, but yet he was able to second two motions.
Yeah, I'm quick.
Good job.
Wow.
I don't
Really?
know, I don't know who seconded
I second both of them.
it. Did you?
So they need to be corrected to take Director Childs off and replace with Director Russell and both
Oh, yeah.
the adjournment and for the resolution.
Okay.
So I make a motion to approve the minutes as amended or approved.
And I'll second it.
Okay, it's been, there's a motion and a second to approve as amended for Director Childs, changing those motions to Director Russell. Any more discussion or any other comments? Okay, take a roll, please.
Director Russell,
Yes.
Director Childs,
Yes.
Director Farnsworth. We lost connection.
Okay.
Director Webb,
Yes.
and Director Yasi.
Yes. All right, and we have two sets of minutes for August 30th, our regular meeting, which was at noon. We can start with that one.
I'd like to have an addition on that I had made quite a lengthy comment, and there's not any mention that I made any comment on that night, on that day. And if you want a copy of that comment, I can provide it for you.
Okay.
Did you see anything
So
else?
did you make a motion then, Cindy?
No, I did not.
With that, okay. Anything else?
No, that's all I found.
Did you catch that?
Yes,
with
we
the-
make that addition.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to approve the new minutes as amended with the city's information inserted.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Big seconds. Larry, we have you back?
Yes, you do.
Okay. We just, there was a motion to, I don't know if you heard the motion or not, for the August 30th noon meeting, one correction to add that Cindy's comments are not mentioned in the minutes. We're gonna correct that. Otherwise, there's been a motion and a second. And so, any more discussion? Okay, let's take a roll call.
Director Russell,
Yes.
Director Childs,
Yes.
Director Farnsworth,
Yes.
Director Webb,
Yes.
Director Yasi.
Yes. And then we have a fourth set of minutes for 5 o'clock meeting on August 30th, the joint meeting.
I move that we accept the minutes as published.
Okay, we have a motion to accept as presented.
Second.
Second from Director Childs. Any discussion? Okay, let's take a roll, please.
Director Russell,
Yes.
Director Childs,
Yes.
Director Farnsworth,
Yes.
Director Webb,
Yes.
Director Yasi.
Yes. Okay, thank you for reading and corrections on those. So now we'll move into public comment. I wonder if anybody signed up. I don't know, did anybody sign up for public comment, or would anybody like to make public comment? And this is a time, we have up to 3 minutes for any public comment, and it's joint, so it's for both boards will share that time.
I think I'm seeing.
Okay?
Okay.
We'll
Hearing
close the
none,
comment period.
we'll move on. Next item on the agenda is the financials. Sayusla Valley Fire and Rescue.
Okay, I'll start with that. For Sayusla Valley Fire, the first report in your packet is the transaction list. And both districts received this report, and it's a little bit different than what you've received in the past because it includes all the accounts in one report. Now that we're on QuickBooks Online, it's combined, and I can't print them separately, so I hope that's acceptable. Are there any questions on?
I just have one. How much more money do we owe on the seismic grant? I mean, do we have to front the money before we get reimbursed? We paid, completely paid for it at this point?
There was still a few.
There's a few, I don't think they're large. In contact with the architect daily on that, so we've been told that we're gonna get them by the end of this month, so I'm thinking under $3,000
Okay.
would be between the two districts total.
Okay, that was just my question, because I see that we're paying quite a bit, in more than one check a month.
Right.
Several checks a month.
The bulk of them should happen, so the big ones.
Okay.
Moving on to the balance sheet, again, both districts have the same report, and you have a previous year comparison in addition to the current year. And so in your packets, you've received as of August 31st for both balance sheets, because that includes July as well. Do you have any questions on the balance sheet?
I have a question on the balance sheets for the checking, for the bank accounts. From what we had last year in the bank accounts versus what we have this year, I see the bottom line number comes pretty close together, but there's a huge difference in where the money is in the different accounts. Is that because of you redoing the QuickBooks and getting them in the right accounts, or what is it?
Not necessarily, it's pretty much where the money was sitting last year on August 31st. I mean, it was, you know, like you're looking at the 366,000 in the checking account. That's what QuickBooks showed was there. That doesn't have anything to do with any of the new software. Because all of the software brought over all of the historical transactions.
So, Dean, do you want Sisseton Valley to do theirs first and then come back to us? Would that be easier for you?
Yes, we could. I was just pointing out that both of these, the transaction list and the balance sheet were the same format for both
Oh,
districts.
you meant, I'm sorry. I thought you
That's
were-
okay.
You're good, you're good.
So then moving on to the budget versus actual, or profit and loss, whichever you want to call it. The one for Sisseton Valley Fire, that's actually in an Excel format because that was done about 2 weeks ago. Following the printing of this report, Captain Taylor was here and we worked together and we did a lot of, improvements and so that is now, you will see that in the future come to you in a PDF directly out of QuickBooks. And it will have year-to-date numbers and percentages. Are there any questions on the Sisseton Valley profit and loss?
I had a question on one of the bills.
On one of the bills
Yeah,
on the transaction list?
yeah. And then it's just the Visa bill seems to be kind of high. I would assume that we used it for some things other than what we normally would. It was like $200, I think is what it was.
For July or?
Well, it was listed in here. It didn't have it was just paid in August.
I was thinking the conflag might be part of it, or the coming back from the fire academy, there were still some travel
Okay.
expenses there.
Yeah,
I can look into it further if you'd like.
we're just watching our pennies, right?
Okay, right.
And that's one thing that kind of stood out.
Are there any other questions on the profit and loss? If not, we can move to the cash flow report. directors on St. Isla Valley a copy of this as well as staff. And I have a few extra copies if anybody wants one, but just gonna go over it here. We did receive some income in September. 3 seismic grant reimbursements came in totaling $121,000. And we also received $40,000 in prior year tax revenue. These were very welcome deposits to see. So right now, the bank balance, which is just money market and checking, is at $163,000. And then I wrote down the breakdown of all the reimbursements that have been submitted that we've gotten confirmation on that are coming back. The SAFER grant, $15,000, seismic grant, $34,000. The Gardner-Taylor conflag of $51,000, and we just recently submitted a small one for the Ramsey conflag. That our firefighters were only there for a couple days, so that was only $6,000. Other revenue of $36,000 brings a subtotal of $142,000. The big question on this is the timing on when these reimbursements are coming in. So that amount of reimbursements, in addition to the money that's in the bank, and in the event that the resolution that comes later in the agenda tonight is adopted, that would bring us up to a little over $500,000. So I've also then outlined some of the expected or projected expenses, and pending no major grant or conflag expenses, the monthly amounts are for October and November would be $170,000 each. And SVFR also owes Western Lane for 3 seismic grant reimbursements of $71,000. So the projected expenses would be a little over $400,000. So if the resolution gets adopted and, to use the capital reserve money and these reimbursements come in, there will be no need to get a line of credit. So it just all depends on timing.
Thank you.
Well,
We need to make a motion to pay the bills, do we not?
I'll make a motion to pay the bills.
602.93. 231,602.93.
I gotta repeat that. I'll make a motion to pay the bills. Where'd you find that? 231,602.93 cents. I'll second.
Okay, make a motion and a second to pay the bills. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
okay, moving on then to the Western Lane financials. So again, the balance sheet and the transaction list are there. Balance sheet shows again, includes both months with the year-to-date comparison. I do want to make note that the profit and loss report, I was in my effort to get trained on QuickBooks Online and learn all the ins and outs of the settings. Some of the materials and services in this profit and loss includes September expenses. They do not include the payroll, obviously, because that doesn't come until October 5th is the next pay date. So these are year-to-date numbers, and as we move forward with future financial reports, this will get a little bit more better at fine-tuning these. Are there any questions on any of the reports?
Just looking at something under the revenue side, I haven't seen in the years I've been in the district, in forest product revenue. We actually had a timber sale.
That's correct. In addition to the $39,000 that came in for the prior year taxes, there was a $32,000 forest product revenue deposit.
That's great. Dean, I was wondering about deferred comp. Looks like we budgeted and paid the entire amount. Is Viva, is is that deferred comp? Or is that,
It's typo.
is it?
Yes.
Well, are you talking about on the profit and loss?
Well,
report?
yeah, on account 5109 and
Right.
account 5209.
So I asked Kathy about this, and in Western, let's see, make sure I got the right report. Yeah, it says deferred comp, oh yes, that is the VIVA contribution at the beginning of the year for the entire fiscal year.
So what is VIVA? I mean, I'm not.
So VIVA is it's like a medical reimbursement program that is paid at one time.
Oh,
So it's a medical spending account, so we contribute $1,500. It actually depends on the district and if they have dependents or they don't have dependents, but there's a set amount that they receive, and that's to be used towards medical expenses. So it's kind of like a MERT or something like that, if they have anything like that.
okay.
So that shows up on both of the statements, and we've talked about that. So just so that everybody knows, the deferred comp, which is paid on a monthly basis, is paid.
It looks like we budgeted the same amount we paid, so
Right.
was the VIVA budgeted in deferred comp? Is that was-
No, it's a typo on that list. It should say VIVA, not deferred comp.
Okay. Okay, yeah, and it's a one-time payment, so.
Yes.
We
Happens
budgeted the whole
upfront.
year, but we pay it
Exactly.
early in the year, the whole thing.
Where deferred comps
So
are
we're
on a
done.
monthly basis.
Yeah, so we're done with VIVA for the entire year.
Right.
Thank you. How about the transactions? And did we not approve July's transactions then?
There
We
were no
didn't have-
financials in the August meeting, since they
Okay.
were special meetings.
So we have before us both the July transaction and August, so why don't we, since we need approval on those, let's go ahead and get the transaction list out of the way. Are there any questions on the transaction lists for July and for August?
Can't see it.
Larry in and out.
You okay?
Yeah.
I move that we approve the transaction list
Okay.
for
Speak up a
July,
little bit.
for July and August.
Okay. It's been moved to approve July and August transaction list. Do we have a second?
A second.
Great. First and a second. Let's do a roll call vote.
Director Russell?
Yes.
Director Childs?
Yes.
Director Farnsworth?
Yes.
Director Webb?
Yes.
Director Yesney?
Yes.
Who seconded?
I
I did, Mike did. Cindy's made the motion. So with those out of the way, let's go back to the financials. Any other questions on the financial statements? Does that,
Are we pretty comfortable with cash carryover, Sean, on the, at year-end cash carryover now?
Yes,
Okay. And we're still in line with what we were budgeting?
yes.
Excellent.
okay, so if we move on, do you want to talk at all about receivables or the receivable reports? It's just in there for information?
Yeah.
Okay,
They're gonna be here next month to discuss.
is that right?
Because from,
Systems design?
Yeah.
Yes, we should.
Okay. All right, I think we're done with financial review. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. I don't see anything under old business at this point, is that correct? I just, because our monies are different, at one point it was talked about that we didn't need to reconvene the budget committee, is that correct?
That is my opinion. The budget committee, actually, their job is to approve the budget, to gather before it's adopted and to approve it as presented, after their meetings. Once the board adopts the budget, the board can make changes. I mean, I can come to you with a supplemental budget and you can change it, but the budget committee's role is done.
Okay, the reason being is because the numbers that they had at that point weren't the same. I mean, but it looks like,
Right, they approved a budget and then it came to the board and the board made the final changes to adopt.
Up to 10% in any one of the three categories.
Okay?
anything else about that?
Just the board has authority up to 10%, then you have to have a supplemental budget bill, I believe.
And that was through the budget
Yeah,
committee?
and special districts can answer that for you.
Okay. And are we over 10% on any item that you know? We're just, the money wasn't there at the end of the year that we thought was going to be there, that we had planned on. Okay. All right, moving on. We have Chief's report. Staff report.
It just clarification on the money was there. It's just the money, the cash flow, available cash flow.
Yes.
As you said, it being available is what's lacking. The money is there. So, Chief's report. We fires and significant calls. September 11th, we had a fairly large fire at Sand Dunes Frontier. We're estimating the loss of about, what, 400,000 or so. In addition to that, both districts remain very busy. Today, ran out of units. On Sunday, we were running out of fire units as well as EMS units. So, just again, that is the trend. Chief Dickerson will get into that in his report a little bit more. We have moved, and you've seen this in your weekly reports. We've got the medic unit, the reserve unit here in the station now, and EMS has been working with the residents and even believe some of the career staff on ensuring that the vehicle's ready and are checked off so that we can use that. Conflagrations, we've been at 3 different fires this year, and all of our conflag money from the state of California has been received. Disaster Expo, August 25th, we both districts participated in the Disaster Expo at the FEC. That's a required thing that we do every year through WeLog, and basically what it is we it's educational for the community to be prepared for disasters. In the past, our emphasis has been on earthquakes. This year, I did a little presentation on being prepared for wildfire. Financial, we're continuing to make progress in that. Dina will brief you on that. Seismic grant, got a little ahead there. I think we've got a few more receipts or invoices that are coming, but for the most part, everything is in. I've been literally working with them daily, and we had a one for like 34,000 or something like that approved today. That's been kind of hanging out there. It's a lot of tracking down to get the receipts that they want. Safer grant, we're continuing to work with them. I was also advised today that they approved our payment. I think it was like 15,000, and then we've got another 30. So what happens is once we submit a request, we're kind of locked until it gets through their process. So as soon as I see that it's approved, I literally looked at it before I came up here, then we can submit the next request in there so that we're on top of it as much as possible. PERS presentation, there's going to be a representative from Piper Jaffrey here in the December 19th meeting to answer your questions. Again, I sent another email out to the state representative. I'm still waiting to hear back from that. I don't know if it looks like Director Farnsworth is gone, but I think a contact there that we might try and tap into as well. And I think that's pretty much about it. I did, I included in your report a picture of one of our crews at the conference, an approved picture, so we're telling everybody we're sending out unauthorized pictures, but I thought this was a great picture because it showed what they do. They do structural protection. And my belief is it's just important that we're there, that we help people, that's what we do. And two, the experience that they get, you can just look at that and you can, that's literally standing your ground right there. And the people, I'm sure we're very thankful. In fact, I think you will see in your correspondence a thank you letter probably from those residents. Any questions on the chief report?
I guess for our board, it's been suggested that December 19th meeting be a joint meeting. Is there any problem with that? That would be kind of the quarterly flow anyway. We were thinking about trying to meet quarterly, so is that okay to go ahead and set that? Good. We'll meet with you guys. 6 o'clock, or 5 o'clock. 6. All right. We'll do it.
EMS report.
It was, I think that's coming up on the agenda.
Okay. Fire operations division.
Operations report. I'll give you guys the quick version. You all have my copy and your thing. Total August calls were 86, so another really busy month. Total calls at the end of the month were 469 versus 2017 at 330 at the same point in time. Had a good fire property loss that month, so then we got another one the next month. Average firefighters per incident is 7. That's a total multi-unit. For structure fires, we're averaging around 14, MVA 7, and EMS for 5. 8.5 minutes is our average response time. For our total response time for the year at this point, we're at 9.75 minutes. Big thing to note on training, which is not in the report, is we have an academy coming up week after next. 15 SVFR, 2 Mapleton Fire, 3 Swiss Home Deadwood, and 2 Reedsport firefighters will be attending the academy. It's a big academy, and we've got help coming from those outside departments to help instruct. So Captain Larson will be busy coordinating, not so much doing all the training. Company level inspections have started with the day crew, and soon to have the volunteer staff doing a lot more, so those inspections are going really well. Other than that, everything is in the report. Do you have any questions outside of what's in there?
What's the goal in response time? I mean, you have like we want to make 7 minutes, or we want to do.
The goal in response time it's varied. I included it in the standard to cover certain response times for certain areas. We have rural, suburban, and urban districts, so that your target times for that are set by NFPA. You want to have the first company on scene being able to work in an urban area within 5 to 7 minutes. For a rural area, you have up to 14 to 20 minutes, and it depends on population density, travel distance from the station. 8.5 minutes for a combination fire department is a good time as a whole. If I break the calls out into fires versus MVAs, the numbers can vary around a little bit, and I look at those. But I just give you guys the general target.
So that's the average time.
That's the average time
to rural and urban and all that.
The only thing I don't include in that is code 1 non-lights and siren response, and out of district when we run all the way out to Mapleton or something like that.
Should you choose to adopt a standard of cover, then your response stats will be based off of that.
Any other questions? Turn it over to EMS operations division.
Matt sent you out an email. You got a quick overview. Don't know if you're not overly prepared to speak on anything in there. I think that the big things are that they're moving forward with their projects. The remodel's basically done. They've not started on the bathroom yet, but the sleeping quarters are in place. I don't know, is the pocket door in yet?
Not yet. It's all over.
So, but they've got the beds in there, and they're actually nice beds. It's
Yeah.
kind of a nice place to go take a nap if I need to. And again, we've moved the medic unit, and I think that's pretty much about it, other than the call volume continues to be high.
So if we're reading that right, I mean, we've got up 94 calls above 254 the prior year, which is what, a 20-some% increase in July? That's just amazing.
I don't know, Jim, I don't know if you mentioned your, not to jump back to fire, but just the trend in the region.
Reasonably, so SVFR prior to this year's top year was 495. We broke 518 today, and that's still 3 full months left to respond.
And that's without the implementation of the additional medical calls.
Yeah, so- And that's about the start of the chimney fire season, which we really haven't hit yet.
We keep hoping that church season's gonna slow down, but it doesn't seem to be slowing down.
Yeah.
I think it goes year round.
The snowbirds are coming through now, crashing their rigs.
Do you track those by types of responses, and is there a certain type that's up that makes up that volume?
A large amount of our calls, the most market increase would be in our MVAs, still car accidents.
Traffic.
It's severely up in comparison. We've had a spike in fire, but the fire also includes, what I do is I sort them by what's called the National Fire Incident Reporting System. So 100 is fires, 200 is rescue, 300, et cetera, et cetera. We don't get a lot of explosions here, so we don't have a lot of 300s. But but how I sort those, and what we really see is a lot of the MVAs inside the rescue portion has been our biggest jump.
And there's no change in how you're responding. You're still responding to the same calls you always were.
Currently.
Yeah. Very good. Wow, that's amazing.
Any questions? Office manager's report.
Okay, so the Chris Marr, our auditor, and his auditor assistant, I guess she's also a CPA, Sandy Freeman, they were here last Friday for the entire day. The morning was spent in conference with Chief, and Kathy was here. So that was good for Kathy to meet the auditors, and they discussed quite a bit of the work that we've been doing, and the meeting went real well. They checked a few things, they gave us a list, we went over a lot of information, and it was good that they came while the chief was still here, because he had a lot of information to share with them. They will return the week of October 22nd to audit both districts. We're coming to the end of Kathy Taylor's contract. The migration to QuickBooks Online is complete, and the new chart of accounts is almost finished. She was, like I mentioned earlier, she was here last week. She does expect to make one more quick trip before, just to wrap things up, to finalize the chart of accounts and to close the books for fiscal year 18. I'd like to retain Kathy as a consultant for looking forward, like on a quarterly basis. She does this a lot for the other districts that she contracts with, and it would just be more or less just touching base on a quarterly basis. I've got an email into her to get a quote of what that would cost, and so I'll bring that to the board next month. Bank accounts. Last month you signed a lot of signature cards with, my name was added as a signer, but it was then later decided that it would be best, since I do financials, for me not to be a signer. So the bank needs to redo all those signature cards. We're gonna wait until the interim chief comes on board to do that. No sense doing it again and then doing it a third time. So that's what's going on with that. And next month, I plan on closing for SVFR. They had an eBay checking account, and they also have a payroll checking account. One of my projects this next month is to get things from the general ledger from coming off of ADP payroll that's going into the payroll account, switched over to the regular checking account so I can close that payroll checking account. And we're trying to minimize the amount of bank accounts we have just to make it a little more manageable. Speaking of ADP, we have been the last couple of months, things were going really good right at the beginning, and then we started to see some errors. There were programming errors on ADP's end. Holly, last month, it took Holly quite a while to correct these errors, and she was on the phone with ADP a lot. What we come to find out is that sometimes when we talk to the support people, they say, yes, we fixed it, but then we run another payroll and know it hasn't been fixed. So Chief made contact with some of the higher ups at ADP, and we have been assigned a special team to help us in the next payroll or whatever it takes to make sure that these errors are corrected.
Is there any particular, was it transactions that had been done properly before and then all of a sudden not?
Enter the information in and the layout for the individual, and the understanding, like to push the save button, and it's in there, so it's gonna stick for next month. So when you input the information, it's gonna calculate it properly. When they do that, it'll be gone. So
So some change.
it's nothing that an email to the CEO can't fix. So.
Moving on to some IT changes. We've been working with our IT group to get global email addresses created, so we all have access to the same group of full-time firefighters, full-time EMS, and then, groups that include all of the employees, part-time and full-time. So everybody is using the same list to distribute information. We also have, there were 2 confidential drives on the network that administrative staff and management had access to that included all the personnel information. We've changed one of those confidential drives to be management access only, so we can have things like evaluations and disciplinary action limited to only the management team. And finally, we've switched, admin staff has adjusted their hours to keep the main doors open downstairs during the lunch hour. So it will be open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Thank you.
Answering phones and
Thank you to the staff for being flexible too. It's great. Dina, did you talk about wanting to have a finance committee at all? Or
oh, yes,
talk
thank
about
you.
that?
I appreciate you bringing that up. Since both boards have a different, SVFR approves the dollar amount and Western Lane approves the transaction list. And Western Lane has debit card lists and Sisseton Valley doesn't. I just would like to recommend that perhaps a director from each district meet with staff and we can come up with a common set of financials that's identical for each district. I know that you both have different needs and we can do supplementary financials, and if Western Lane needs something that Sisseton Valley doesn't, we can do that. But everybody to have a balance sheet and the profit and loss and the transaction list, and their action would be the same, either approving a transaction list or, and I lean towards the transaction list because in these new reports, it's going to be year-to-date totals and coming up with the dollar amount spent. We can do that, but when you have credit cards, debit cards, electronic ACH transfers and checks. That's that's sometimes a difficult number to come up with all the different reports that. Anyway, I was just going to suggest that perhaps we have a financial committee to discuss a common set of financial reports for both districts.
I would like to postpone that till next month and we'll talk about it then because I would like the other members to be here as well.
Okay?
If that would be
I will
appropriate.
bring that up again.
And I think that's fine. I think if we'll look at our board members here with our small board, including Larry over there. But do we have two committees right now that everybody's sitting on? We have a policy committee, we have the IGA committee. Are there any other committees that I'm not aware of?
No, and this one would just be an ad hoc. You'd meet one or two times.
Okay.
And,
So
make
it wouldn't be a
recommendation.
standing, we're not recommending a standing meet every month?
No, just to
Staff.
accomplish this goal.
Perfect, so it's more like a work group than
Right.
and one member from each. Okay, yeah, and I'm good with John, we can point, if that's okay, if you can wait
That's
till
fine.
next month.
Yeah, bring it up next month.
Good, okay.
Anything else under tax points? Hearing nothing, let's move on to new business.
Okay, so the resolution is pretty self-explanatory. Again, in order to postpone the need for a line of credit, it is the recommendation to use the capital reserve funds in SVFR to use that money for expenditures to get through next month's payroll and next month's monthly expenses. And if those reimbursements start coming in, we'll be able to get through November payroll as well.
Any discussion?
I mean, it makes sense to me. And I know in the past we've talked about the line of credit as well. We all can have different feelings about that. I understand where you're coming from on that. One of the questions I guess I would have is what is I know we're sort of banking, no pun intended, on the fact that we're going to get those additional funds within a certain period of time. Do we have any feeling in terms of, are we 70% sure, 20% sure, 90% sure?
Well, we're sure that the money has been confirmed, but it's in the hands of,
We're being as aggressive as we can.
Yeah, almost like a collection agency at this point.
I'm on a first name basis. And they understand, on top of that, they understand our situation and why we're on a first name basis. So,
Yeah.
but the people that I interact with are typically mid-management. So some of these things have to be approved at levels above them, so it can still take some time.
So, question would be, I know we have bank people here with us. What kind of time frame would it take to, if we discovered that we were going to be short, is this a 2-week process to acquire funds, or is this a month?
How long does it take for you to get a resolution drawn?
Director Phillips, if I could just interject, those are actually just to keep things on track, 2 separate agenda items. And then we'll be hitting the line of credit next.
Okay.
And in reading this money would be replaced as
Absolutely.
soon as it came,
As
and then
soon as-
we budgeted another 100,000 per the capital and the replacement fund for vehicles. So that would be also taken out of the insurance.
And Dina and I had this discussion to make sure that we put the proper wording in there, that it will be replaced as soon as we can. So in other words, if our first payment is for $200,000 and we turn right around, we put it in there, we're in the same spot that we were in before. So as soon as the bulk of that revenue comes in, then it would be a priority to replace it.
Any other discussion? We have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Now, John seconded.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. Let's do a roll call on this.
Director Carnahan?
Yes.
Director Hickson?
Yes.
Director Phillips?
Here. Yes. Yes.
Next agenda item is line of credit.
Okay, so, in front of you are two. One is a condensed version, I don't think you want that one, although you get it in your
Yeah,
outline.
it's packet.
Two requests for proposals. So, as we've been discussing, in the event that we do need to access the funding to get us through for a month or so, we've recommended this. We actually recommended this last year when we weren't sure what was going to happen with the tax revenue and to obtain a line of credit. It just probably, in my opinion, not a bad thing to have. It's not overly expensive to maintain it. Just because you have it doesn't mean you have to use it. It's just a safety net. So we sent out the RFP, so they were hand delivered. Well, I guess two were emailed and the other two were hand delivered to a total of 4 institutions. We received 2. One was from Vanderbank, one was from Oregon Pacific Bank. We have instructed the institutions that have put in RFPs that they were welcome to attend the meeting. We advised them they wouldn't be doing presentations, but should you have specific questions for that institution, we have some people present, and it looks like we do for Banner Bank, you can ask them directly. So with that, I guess I'll turn it over to your discussion.
Okay, do you have any questions? The only question I have is, let's say we need 50,000, full 300,000. Now, this says that 25% of the loan, whatever that is, the loan would be, if we only borrow 50,000, it would be 0.25% of that, correct?
Correct.
They don't take the whole balance. They just borrow 25.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. And,
Forgive me, can you,
I don't think you heard the
are
question.
you referring to the cost of the borrowing or?
what I'm referring to is if we get to the point, I would prefer not to use this at all.
Sure, understood.
But if we had to borrow, let's say 50,000, the loan fee
Okay,
would
that's,
be 0.25%
Of the loan fee.
The loan fee.
The
would
fee is based on the amount of credit that you have.
So it
it's
was
based on the commitment. It's based on the full amount of
The
$300,000.
interest is
Okay.
based on what you pull out.
Just what you pull out.
Correct. You're only paying interest on what you borrow.
So if we set up for the $300,000 line of credit,
Yes.
it would cost us $750 right up front.
And that's for 3 years.
Okay.
So those funds are
It's
set
200
aside, available to you.
$250 a year is your cost.
And it would be available whenever we need it.
Correct. All it takes is a phone call to Dee and she sends me an email and I put it in your account.
And interest is only on that which we borrow.
Correct.
I say we say yes before Ron gets back.
Not really comparable.
My personal, my feeling is that I would feel more comfortable making this decision with a full board, or at least close to a full board. I don't know if I'm ready to make a decision on that right now. I feel a little weird making that decision with just 3 of us here. I feel more comfortable if we had at least 4 people.
So we would put this off down, what you're suggesting is putting it off till next month?
Yeah.
That's kind of a timing issue.
I didn't,
It's
I can just
concerning.
expire.
Well, that end, if we end up getting tight, again, we move this as fast as we could to ensure that we would be ready for this board meeting so that we can make a decision.
Well, the two choices we have. But hopefully we don't have to use it. That's all and
disparity. Really,
A lot of lines are just insurance.
well, we get down to the point where we're gonna be scraping pennies here real soon.
Well, this gives you a little bit of a
Security.
security blanket for that unfortunate event, so. it's-
Yeah, I don't wanna borrow money to balance the budget, that's all.
No, that would not be good.
That's my point. The money's coming in. It's just we have a cash flow problem right
And that's what this would be, basically a bridge for that cash flow timing difference.
now. Well, when I looked at these, knowing what I know, there's only one that stands out.
So seeing some of you guys are both here, help me understand interest rate. You've got prime minus 1.25% floating, which is currently 3.75%. Prime is 5%.
At the time I wrote this letter, prime was 5%, excuse me.
Okay.
I'm sure tomorrow will be 5.25 because the Fed just raised rates today.
Okay, so this is not just for simplicity and for me.
Yeah.
Our other proposal is 81% of Wall Street Journal prime rate plus 0.5% fully floated.
Okay.
Currently 4.45.
So what OPB has done is taken the effective tax rate and given you credit for that as being a non-taxable entity. So they've taken the 19% discount. We've just up, we've just backed it off upfront. We have assumed that this will be a tax-free or tax-exempt transaction for Banner Bank, so we have priced it accordingly.
Okay.
There's no calculation of 81% of what prime is, plus anything. We've just taken prime minus 1.25. It's much more simple to calculate. So, I understand what they're doing. It's 6 one way, half a dozen the other. It's just the effective interest rate that they're charging is a little bit higher than what we're charging.
And that would change with,
Changes as prime changes. And it's a floating rate, meaning, the day it changes, your rate changes.
Same thing with yours, right?
Correct.
same thing.
No ceiling.
No ceiling, but no floor either. So, I'm not expecting prime to come down anytime soon, but I'm just,
Yeah. What was your recommendation?
Our recommendation would be that you choose one and that we get this going. The institution that you choose is entirely a board decision.
Because you sounded like you had a specific.
Well, I think Banner Bank is a much better deal.
I'm looking at the interest rate.
You're gonna pay $250 a year to have this put in.
Or to say it is 25, correct?
$25.
If you never use this, it's gonna cost you $50. Is that a one-time fee? One-time $50 for the full 3 years, is that correct?
Well, whatever the maturity was on that, I think it was running through the next fiscal year. Then renewals are pretty inexpensive. You look at typically $25 per renewal, but that's not right. It's small documentation fee is the only thing that we were charging them.
I'm sorry, I can't.
Just a small documentation fee is all we were charging to set it up. And all we would need to get it underway is a resolution from the board that says you want it dual signed. And then we can have it done within a couple days, documents back to you.
So, you say it takes a couple of days, how long would it take you guys?
Week,
Maybe
not very long at all.
How much time do we need, when you guys realize you're running short? How much time do you guys need?
Like, if we're given direction to work with a selected financial institution, we'll begin it tomorrow.
No, I guess what I'm saying is, how much time before you guys realize that we need more money? I mean, is that like,
Sure, Dina leaves right when I need her. I'm thinking we're sitting pretty good through this next payroll.
right, I got that, but I mean, say you guys can project
Right.
2-3 weeks in
We
advance of
got, we got some
what
buffer time, but it doesn't mean something's not gonna happen, so. And that's just, that's probably on the overcautious side, but that's, I think where I like to be. As staff, we would feel more comfortable if we were given direction tonight. If your question is leaning towards, is this something that can wait?
Well, if we can stick to the 170,000 per month, that buys us some time. But we have not stuck to 170,000 for most of this year.
Well, a lot of that has been because of the grants. So the amount that we're paying out has been unusually high. When you get close to $500,000 in grants, and there's money in front, yeah.
Well, I guess the reason I asked the first question is because it seemed like between, passing 2018-5, between that and what we were expecting to come in, that we're good, we expect to be good through November, correct? The two payroll periods, October, November, that's what it sounded like. That's why I brought it up, because it's something we need to decide right now, because if we're good through October, that's when our next meeting is.
Right, and that was the question I brought up, that you don't feel comfortable going until.
Our job is to take care of the district, and we feel that the safest and most secure thing would be to have this in place.
And the next question I would have is when and how would you activate this? Let's say that you needed another 100,000 moved into the checking account.
Well, I think it's going to depend on the institution that we do the business with, but how, from a staff perspective, we would sign the agreements with them, and then we would get direction from them, if needed, how we activate it.
Well, I guess my question is, would the board get involved in that?
We probably, yeah, if you wanted to, or you can give us direction that if you need to use it, use it. If it were going to be a board action item, it would require a special meeting. And that's not a big deal. I think that's just in the process part as I think through that.
Okay, I know that we ratified things in the meeting that we discussed just by phone. And I think, I don't want to turn over $300,000 in debt if I can help it. Matter of fact, I just assumed we didn't have any debt.
I know in the past, I believe it was the last meeting, I could be wrong, maybe it was the one before that, we talked about establishing a line of credit simply because of what we had experienced this year with having a financial drought, so to speak, and we had that window where it gets a little tight because the tax dollars aren't coming in or whatever. So the other part of this question is, are we just putting it off the inevitable, or is it something that we feel that we really need to have right now? And if it's something that we're just putting off that we think we're going to need anyway at some point, and I was under the impression that we kind of felt like, we should just have this anyway in the event we need it. It's there. Maybe we don't ever use it. Hopefully we don't use it at all. Sorry. Sorry. Hopefully we don't use it.
No need to apologize.
But is it something we should just have?
We talked about it last year because it was really tight.
Right.
You remember those discussions?
Mm-hmm.
It was really tight, but we made it through. And we were planning to have more money to carry over this year. And I understand that we reimbursed And the money's coming in, but it's not here this minute.
I guess I'm looking at it as, okay, there's this year, and this is for 3 years, I believe, somewhere in there. We would have this if we needed it. My goal would be to not touch it at all. But at least it's there. If something catastrophic happens, who knows what. So for that peace of mind for $250 a month or whatever we decide, whichever we decide to go with, or a year, kind of seems worth it to me.
So what I'm thinking is this is a really short-term loan, because we're gonna get tax money soon. If we borrow money, it's gonna be not a huge amount, and it's gonna be a month, 2 months. And
So, not to interrupt you, but to kind of go back to some of your earlier questions now that Dean is here. Dean, if you did anticipate when we would tap into this, when would that be, the November time?
Probably late October, early November, because usually the majority of the tax revenue arrives mid-November.
Yes.
right, so we're talking relatively short-term.
Short term.
Yeah, it would be very short.
So you got a $50 loan fee versus a $750 loan. I mean, how much interest are you gonna use up in that? You know, the difference between Prime and Wall Street Journal, how much difference is there? I mean, it can't be a lot. $50 for a 3-year loan fee. If we never had to use it, $50. That's kind of my thoughts.
Now, the reason this came up, and I think you had just gone out when we brought it up, but my question was, is this something that we can put off till next month? Simply because we felt, or I at least felt more comfortable if we had 4 people here, at least a majority of the board. And so then the question was, well, what kind of window are we looking at in the event that we need to use it? Is it something that we can put together, mid-October, but by the time of our next meeting, will we have an indication of, yes, we're going to need this, so let's do it now? Or is it something we need to decide?
Well, number one, Director Green would probably have to declare a conflict of interest.
Right.
And number two, we can call a special meeting, but we just don't really want to have to do that. And we were hoping that decision could be made tonight.
So, I guess the other question is, what are our feelings on it? Is this something that we think we would probably just establish at some point anyway? Just to have it? Probably.
Well, I would sure hope not. I would hope that we'd start planning for the right period of finance.
Right.
That we would actually put money away for that.
So if things go as planned, they'll replenish the 200,000 that we've made a resolution to borrow, plus the additional 200, that's 4 there, and then if we can.
And then next year, we're gonna have the same problem. Because we didn't budget this year to carry over for next, in this budget year.
John Murphy will keep us on line.
Well, but we didn't budget, we didn't have the right numbers. So the point I guess I'm getting across is that we'll probably use it, hopefully we don't use it this year, but next year we probably would use it. Some, hopefully not much, but some would be that insurance policy that we have.
And I guess the other question is too, if we were to use it, I'm assuming it's something that would come through the board? Or is this, okay, so even if we said, yes, let's do it, it's still something that would have to be approved before we use it. So it's not like it's just.
Okay, so you're gonna put the strings on that we would have, they'd have to notify us first before we can use it.
I would feel.
Is
We
that
would
what you're
come to you
saying?
with a resolution, I think.
So, I mean, it's not like.
I'm not sure, I haven't been through this situation before.
Yeah.
Have you, John?
You can make a resolution, pick one of these institutions, and then, of course, Dean is gonna come to and say, boys, we're out of money, we need to borrow some. She's gonna tell you how much, and you're gonna okay it, or not.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with the line of credit. I think it's not a bad thing to have. However, I would feel more comfortable if we approved that, we would have the say on whether or not we, when and if we use it. At least as a checks and balances kind
I
of.
would agree with that.
I just would feel more comfortable with that.
Just a point that another district that we do tri-period financing for is in their resolution that they do every year, they dictate that. So they say who signs for it and how monies are advanced. And you just put it within your resolution, and then the bank just sets it up accordingly, whatever bank.
It becomes part of the loan agreement.
Whoever
So-
has the rights to sign and to advance funds is dictated in the documents.
All right. I'd feel a lot more comfortable with that. Okay, let's decide which one we're gonna.
So, I'm a gambler, I would say that $50 fees are cheap. We may not spend that much in interest above what we would with banners. I would make a resolution or motion to approve the line of credit for Oregon Pacific Bank.
John, what are your thoughts?
Well, I would have gone with banner thing myself, but that's me, because I like to know what it's gonna actually cost.
You have a motion, you know?
We do have a motion, do I have a second?
For OPD? Or what are we motioning for? Or was that a motion?
It was
Yes.
a motion.
Oh, it was a motion, okay.
Do I have a second?
So my feeling is Banner Bank as well.
Throw it out.
For a couple of reasons. One of them is I like the idea of, I'm not completely, I know we have other accounts with OPB, I understand that. But I would feel more comfortable dealing with, in this particular situation, with a bank that is not associated with anyone else.
Makes sense.
Just for transparency and all that stuff. I would feel more comfortable.
I have a motion on the floor.
All second, it.
Well, you made the motion.
Well, the first one.
John, point of order. You need to state for the record, the motion dies for lack of second.
Motion dies for lack of second.
So I make a motion.
You had a second.
I make a motion for Banner Bank.
And I'll go ahead and second that one.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We need to do a roll call on this.
Director Carnahan?
Yes.
Director Nixon?
Yes.
Director Phillips?
Here, yes, here again.
Still here.
Thank you.
Still here.
So this will be, this resolution will be drawn up with the stipulation that it will be, the board has to approve.
That's, they've got this in the queue. Okay. Next thing on the agenda is interim chief.
Yes, so I'm going to give a report on that. So at our last meeting, August 30th, it was decided, Director Green decided to engage, that we should engage SDO in the process of finding an interim to have them help us, and that the IGA committee would review the candidates for an interim position. We had an IGA committee on the 14th, and we had engaged George Dunkel from SBAO. George had very quickly, Larry, Director Farnsworth and Director Green have both been in touch with George before the meeting, and he had 2 resumes to us within a couple of days, by the 18th. And actually, George was in Nevada, I believe, at the time. Remember, he was coming back from Ohio State, Oregon State game, where they'd driven out to Ohio, watched the Oregon State game, then were driving to Nevada to watch Oregon State and Nevada play. And while he was driving, he found us 2 candidates. They were both very, very good candidates. I think you've received the resumes. There was a 3rd resume that came later, a couple days later. We didn't feel that resume was as strong. and we were not able to schedule that person, so we kind of put that person on hold. Yesterday, Director Hickson and I met with the two candidates that were referred, and I'm happy to say they're both excellent candidates. They were really good. They were quite different. They both have good background, good experience. We also distributed resumes to Dina and to Matt House and also to Chief Dickerson for their comments, and all five of us, Director Hickson and I and the staff, were unanimous in recommending Steve Abel as the candidate that we think we should consider as an interim for this position. He's Director Hanson, not Director Hanson, but Interim Hanson, who would be, is also at Oak Ridge, which is another issue, so he can't be here full-time. He committed to 1 week a month full-time and then part-time on the other weeks. And just our needs seem to fit better with, and I think the demeanor and needs that we have right now, we just felt Steve Abel was an excellent candidate for us. You had his resumes. I think everybody did you all get to see the resumes? And but seeing him in person too was really enlightening.
Yeah.
And Ned, if you'd like to add anything on that from the interviews?
I was just going to say, as Rick said, that they're both really great candidates. They both have strong backgrounds, fire, medical, troubleshooting, strategic planning, all of these things. But we really kind of felt that in the end it came down to two things. One of them, you were saying, was the availability of Michael. Trying to split his time between Oak Ridge and here didn't seem like it would be a good fit for us. And the other part of it was just sort of Steve had a very specific plan for long-term in terms of looking for a permanent chief. We asked him, what would your process be for that? And we felt that Steve's idea, he had a specific plan for that, involved, community involvement and different sort of challenges that they had to do. And it was very, I wouldn't say complicated, but it was thorough, a little more so than Michael did. And also his demeanor. Steve was a little more laid back, more of a kind of an even keel. Mike was the kind of guy that I felt like he's the guy that you want to come in, like a dynamo and just take a horrible situation and it's like he was pretty energetic, and we felt maybe a little bit too much so. Whereas Steve was a little more even keel, communicated very succinctly, very cleanly, very well, stayed on the topic, and moved through his interview really nicely. So we both, when it was over, both very strongly about Steve. And his availability is really great. He and his wife have a fifth wheel. Basically said we just need a place to park our fifth wheel in a camping spot or whatever. That's kind of what we do. And he could go pretty much anytime. He only had one date in which he couldn't be here, which was the 10th of October, for some service maintenance on his fifth wheel. But other than that, he was available pretty much anytime. And he lives in Creswell, which is not very far, which was another place.
Yeah, I'd like to add that Director Farnsworth also had weighed in, like both, and
He's not there.
Larry's not there, but I could paraphrase for Larry. He liked both of them really well. I think Steve's availability really tipped him in that camp as well. And Director Green got to talk to Steve, had a really good interview. He did talk to Michael Hansen as well. I didn't get feedback on that, but all four members talked to the two candidates. So we narrowed it down to those two. And then I think our recommendation is that we pursue trying to get Steve Abel as the interim. And that we really wanted to see if we could get an interim here to overlap with Chief in his last week or so that he was here to help with that transition.
What kind of monies are we talking about? Do we know?
We'd have to go into, probably the process would be to go into negotiation, and we don't know.
Do you pay him directly or you pay through SDAO?
Probably directly. SDAO used to kind of using the subcontracting, but they kind of recommended not to, but
It's
they, I
basically a
believe
contract.
it's a limited liability company, and so it might be a contract with the company, or we can.
And the reason I used to use SDAO as a pool, because they could avoid PERS impact. They could have so many hours, they
Right.
could work. And I think Brian Burwright's cost was fairly close to what Hanf was being paid. So,
Some things that, in this case though, is that, you know, you don't have the, you have to deal with the health insurance stuff, you don't have to deal with PERS, you don't have to deal with, there's a lot of costs that are subtracted out from what you would normally be paying too, so that's,
Right.
that's kind of a bonus on that. And part of it too was that, like Rick said, we felt very strongly that we wanted some overlap time, and so we tried to move on this pretty quickly so that we could get that in here. And it sounded like logistically, you know, if Steve was available and he wanted to do it, which he sounded like he was both of those things, he could be here, you know, say the week of, well, we decide like the 8th or the 6th, something like that, which would give him some overlap time.
Right. Like next week, probably.
on paper, I like Steve's skill set.
Yeah.
Didn't talk to him, but he looked like a good match.
Very personable, good with people. If you look through his stuff, you know, you can see he's handled a lot of strategic planning and IGA work and bringing two departments together, and he's got the skill set for sure. So, and he was very good in speaking, which is another part of this thing is, you know, the ability to communicate with the public about certain things. Steve, I felt, was a lot stronger in that area. Mike was very enthusiastic, but he sort of jumped around a lot. And Steve is more of a linear thinker and linear communicator, which I think is important.
He's also a good listener.
Yeah.
I think he had a very good listening skills, so, but he hold people accountable, so, I think we were impressed with both of them. Just felt Steve's skill set and his demeanor was better, and I think that came through with the staff as well. But you guys were unanimous in picking Steve on the resumes.
So do you need a motion? What do you need?
Well, I think it's going to be a site sub valley, but I'd like input from our district, because we'll be working with them as well. So what I thought we might do is an advisory vote or a recommendation vote from Western Lane. And
Well, how
then see
about this?
what-
I make a motion that we recommend Steve Abel for this
I'll
particular
second
spot.
Okay. Is Larry with us?
It makes me nervous. I see him, he looks like he's in a cockpit, and then all of a sudden it goes out. And it's a cockpit again, then it goes out. But I'm not sure what's going on.
Did you want to check your phone and see if there's any plans?
Okay, well, maybe, hopefully, Larry is in the middle of a crash landing. So there's been a motion from Director Webb, a second by Director Russell, that for Western Lane to recommend to Sisa Valley Fire and Rescue that we would like to have Steve Abel pursued as an interim. Can we do a roll call vote?
Director Russell.
Yes.
Director Childs.
Yes.
Director Farnsworth. Director Webb.
Yes.
Director Yesney.
Yes.
It's up to us, right? One thing I want to just lay out on the table, because I feel very strongly about it, is the day-to-day operations are not going to change. We have operations chiefs that are very capable of taking care of the day-to-day operations. This is strictly a chief's position.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So that's another thing we thought was we have very strong operations already. So we don't delay, we kind of need to continue, moving with the IG and administrative.
Okay.
Well, and I know that because of the timing factor, Michael wasn't able to get here until like right before his interview, whereas Steve was able to spend some time. So he got to talk with staff and tour some things. So he's impressed with the operational part of both Western Lane Ambulance and Site Stuff. So he's aware that, this is not me coming in and trying to run the operation. It's
Okay, and is this a month contract, or is it a 6-month contract?
We talked to, actually, good question. George asked us whether we thought it would be a 3 to 6 month gig or a 6 to 9 month. We actually, in the IGA committee, felt probably 6 to 9 months is what, so we'd have enough
not
time.
rushing into.
you're running into the holidays, you know, towards the end of the year, and it's gonna be a process, so.
Yeah, we figured we're probably gonna lose a month anyway, just because of the holidays and right around the time we start really looking for a permanent position, so.
I would entertain a motion. Any questions, anything you have? Yeah, I read this resume.
Yeah. Yeah, good fire background, good medical background. So I guess I'll make a motion.
You got
Make a
the
motion to, yeah, to pursue Steve Abel as interim chief.
And I don't second that.
Okay, motion and second. Let's do a roll call as well.
Director Carnahan?
Yes.
Director Hickson?
Yes.
Director Phillips?
Yes.
All right. At this time, it's an opportunity for directors to comment on any topics not on the agenda.
I think this might be our last meeting for the ambulance group with Chief Langborg, so we'd just like to say thank you, Chief, for everything and for your work and for your commitment to our community, and wish you the best of luck on behalf of all of us. Thank you. Thank you for your service.
And I'm sure Larry was saying something really great.
Yeah.
Well, Larry must be going down.
Thank you.
You're pretty hard work and your insight, and you're moving the city forward.
Thank you very much.
Okay, any other comments? Directors? Hearing none, correspondence? We had some others in our package, it was really nice.
Very nice.
Thank you for that. Any future agenda items?
One note on there, I think Dina reminded me for Western Lane, the October 25th meeting is a Thursday, as marked as a Wednesday, is that right? And what we had talked about too is Dean had also noted that our fourth Thursday meeting in November is on Thanksgiving Day. I didn't know if you wanted to meet on Thanksgiving and have lunch. Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, you said you're cooking?
Yeah, okay. No, you definitely wouldn't want that. So if it's okay with everybody, we would move our meeting to the 29th. As we move it to the next week to keep it off of Thanksgiving.
Sure.
Sound good?
Oh, yeah. Tell Larry we're meeting for Thanksgiving just for fun.
Yeah.
I'd also like to say that the Singsla Valley's meeting is scheduled for the night before Thanksgiving. The 21st is Thanksgiving Eve, so you may want to think about maybe rescheduling for that as well.
We can talk about that next month.
I could probably do it if it wasn't a 278-page report.
So our next scheduled, Singsla Valley Fire and Rescue's next scheduled meeting is Wednesday, October 17th at 6 p.m. Here. Thank you. Hearing now,
Okay, John, you ready?
I'm in right.
Ready?
You guys really
Ready?
boiled it last